Generating 3D models with current software programs requires a significant amount of effort. Note that even without articulation, this is a tedious process. Articulation and reposing will make it even worse. In this work, we describe the first method to generate a 3D human model from a single sketched 2D stick figure. We also demonstrate that our network can generate 3D animations through interpolation and extrapolation in the learned embedding space. We exploit variational autoencoders to develop a novel framework capable of transitioning from a simple 2D stick figure sketch to a corresponding 3D human model. We trained this deep neural network with 2D joints 3D model pairs. We use Scape as a 3D human model dataset. Since our network is trained with 2D joints 3D model pairs, we also extract 2D joints from a 3D model in a particular perspective. We designate 11 essential points that alone can describe a 3D human pose. These are the following: forehead, elbows, hands, neck, abdomen, knees, and feet. We select these 3D points in a reference mesh from the dataset and project these joints onto a 2D camera plane. We connect the projections based on predefined adjacency information. Since the dataset has the point-to-point correspondence information in itself, we continue to project these selected joints for all meshes in the dataset. We also use a simple algorithm to extend this dataset by rotating the existing figures with different angles. For our training network, we have 2 encoders and 1 decoder: encoder 3D, encoder 2D, and decoder. Encoder 3D and decoder together serve as a variational autoencoder. We utilize variational autoencoders rather than standard autoencoders to take advantage of its meaningful organized latent distribution properties. Our variational autoencoder takes a 3D point cloud as the input and reconstructs the same model as the output. Meanwhile, we use our encoder 2D to predict latent vectors of corresponding 3D models from 2D points. In order to provide our latent distribution with similarity information between 3D models, we designed this partial architecture for our neural network instead of using a variational autoencoder which directly generates 3D models from 2D sketches. Thus, our encoder 3D is capable of learning relations between 3D models rather than 2D sketches while creating a regularized latent distribution. With this method, we aim to explore latent space better and generate more meaningful transitions between 3D models. We follow a 3-stage process to train our network. We train our variational autoencoder independently with the standard variational autoencoder loss functions. Then, we train our encoder 2D to regress the latent vector produced from the pre-trained encoder 3D for the input 3D model. Finally, we train the overall network jointly to fine-tune our framework. After training our model with different poses in the dataset, we remove encoder 3D and use encoder 2D decoder as our testing network in our experiments. Our method can be used in a variety of applications in different fields, such as character generation and making quick animations. In order to better utilize these applications, we propose a user interface with facilitative properties that enables users to perform our method in a better manner. Our user interface acts as an agent that ensures the input-output communication between the user and our neural network. The user can choose whether to generate 3D models from 2D stick figure sketches or create animations between the source and target stick figure sketches. While it takes about 1 second to process a sketch input for generation of corresponding 3D model, this time extends approximately to 5 seconds for producing animation between and beyond input sketches. For 3D model generation experiments, we take an input sketch through our user interface and generate corresponding 3D model using our embedded pre-trained network. Our framework can generate 3D models from given 2D stick figure sketches. The UI automatically detects the end of sketch and processes the input. The user can view and explore the generated 3D model. The user can sketch consecutively. Natural editing gestures in order to provide fluent user experience. Generated from scratch in 1.2 seconds. To accomplish 3D animation generation, our framework takes two stick figure sketches via our user interface. The framework then encodes the stick figures into the embedding space to extract their latent variables. We create a list of latent variables by linearly interpolating between the source and the target latent variables. We feed this list as an input to our decoder, with each element of the list being fed one by one to produce the desired 3D model sequence. The user turns on the animation mode. First, the user sketches the source frame. Second, the user sketches the target frame. Interpolated gray and extrapolated red 3D models are shown in 3D canvas. It's generated from scratch in 6 seconds. In this part, we first evaluate our framework quantitatively. To quantitatively justify our preference on variational autoencoders, we design a standard autoencoder baseline with similar dimensions, activation functions, and training duration. We compare the per-vertex construction loss on validation set consisting held-out 3D models with our variational autoencoder network and standard autoencoder network. The results on table 1 show that our variational autoencoder network outperforms autoencoder network, exploiting latent space more efficiently to enhance the generation quality of novel 3D models. We evaluate different latent dimensions of our variational autoencoder framework using per-vertex reconstruction loss on validation set. The results on table 2 show that using 256 dimensions improves generation quality compared to lower dimensions. Higher dimensions lead to overfitting. We used 256 dimensions for the following experiments. To evaluate the generation ability qualitatively, we feed 2D stick figure sketches as input to our framework. Our user interface is used for the sketching activity. In figure 1, we compare generation results for sample sketches with our variational autoencoder network and standard autoencoder baseline. These results show that the standard autoencoder network generates models with anatomical flows, such as collapsed arm in figure 1 and deficient body orientations. Our variational autoencoder network produces compatible models of high quality. We also compare the generation ability of our framework with a recent study, Simplify, that predicts 3D shape from 2D joints. While our framework outputs 3D point clouds, the Simplify method tries to fit a statistical body shape model, SMPL. Their learned statistical model is a male who is in a different shape than our male model, as shown in the second column of figure 2. We create the visuals using the algorithm which is shared in their paper and draw the corresponding stick figures for a fair comparison. Despite being restricted to reported poses in Simplify, our method compares favorably. The sitting pose in figure 2, top row, for instance, which is not quite captured by their statistical model, shows in an inaccurate 3D sitting, while our 3D model sits successfully. We test the capability of our network to generate 3D animations between source and target stick figures. In figure 3a, we compare our results with direct linear interpolation between source and target 3D model output. Our results show that the interpolation in embedding space can avoid anatomical flows, which usually occur in methods using direct linear interpolation. They also show that the interpolation vector in the embedding space is capable of reasonably representing the motion in real-world actions. To improve upon this idea, we exploit the learned interpolation vector in order to predict future movements. We show our results for extrapolation in figure 2b. This figure shows that the learned interpolation vector between two 3D shapes contains meaningful information of movement in 3D.